Winston Leonard Spencer Churchill was born on November 30, 1874, at Blenheim Palace in Oxfordshire. He originated from one of the most distinguished families in Britain's nobility. His father, Lord Randolph Churchill, was a significant political figure within the Conservative Party during the late 19th century, though his career was ultimately thwarted by opposition from Lord Salisbury. Winston's mother was Jenny Jerome, an American socialite from a well-moneyed family, just one of several heiresses whom British aristocrats married during the Gilded Age. Yet despite having nobility in his veins, Winston was never spoiled or coddled. Most of his childhood was spent in the care of nannies, a consequence of his parents' lives being vastly too busy. Churchill's childhood background reveals the British aristocratic tradition, that were disciplined but often criticized him of his behavior and academic underabilities. He joined Harrow School in 1888 when he failed the entrance test for Sandhurst Military College but completed the course at Sandhurst and passed it out in December 1893. What happened in the course of that 4 years he spent at Sandhurst would prove crucial to his being duelled as an able strategist and fine-tuning him for that role of future military leadership and tactician. Having completed his studies, Churchill entered the British Army and soon found himself in direct actions throughout the British Empire, first in operations in the northwest of India, then in Sudan. Those early experiences in combat shaped his attitudes toward British imperialism and broader knowledge of global affairs, though he was often critical of the harsh methods employed in colonial campaigns. Literary ambitions. Churchill's literary ambitions also began to flourish during his military career. Stationed in India, he absorbed an immense corpus of work from Plato to Darwin, upon which he drew later to establish the pillars of political thought and oratory. Writing turned out to be a very promising career during the Boer War in South Africa, where he served as a war correspondent for the Morning Post. Captured by Boer forces, he made a sensational escape that threw him into limelight and enhanced his credentials as an audacious adventurer, making him an even more popular figure with the British public. As the Liberal Party hero in the early 20th century, Churchill's political career gathered pace, with his focus on social reforms and his confrontation of former Conservative colleagues on free trade and Irish Home Rule. His advocacy for naval expansion proved crucial as he realized that the threat of war in Europe was imminent. He was appointed First Lord of the Admiralty in 1911 and began efforts to modernize the Royal Navy, an important step in preparing Britain for the Great War that would soon break out in 1914. However, Churchill's career also included its share of fails. He took part in the ill-fated Gallipoli campaign, which was aimed at capturing the Dardanelles and getting the Ottoman Empire out of the war. He did not succeed in this operation. The failure left an imprint on him when he resigned from the Admiralty. However, he soon returned to politics and became Minister of Munitions in order to assist in the management of the wartime economy set up to increase production in response to intensified hostilities. Thus, he learned to bounce back from failure and stay afloat in British politics. In the 1930s, while Adolf Hitler became increasingly powerful in Germany, Churchill was perhaps one of the only British politicians at that time who consistently warned of the dangers of the Nazi regime. His warnings were largely ignored, and he spent much of the decade in isolation. But the outbreak of World War II in 1939 provided him with vindication of his stance as a steadfast anti-appeaser. It was in May 1940 when Neville Chamberlain resigned and Winston Churchill became Britain's Prime Minister, galvanizing the British people in their darkest hour and publishing historic speeches which the nation embraced to sustain the onslaught of Nazi aggression. Under Churchill's leadership, Britain suffered the Blitz and the threat of invasion but remained a bastion of resistance to fascism. His relations with U.S. President Franklin D. Roosevelt and Soviet leader Joseph Stalin proved indispensable in ultimately winning for the Allies. But after the war was won, Churchill's star once more waned when he lost the general election of 1945. Still, he came back as Prime Minister in 1951, though his second term was not quite so impressive. Winston Churchill was one of the most towering legacies, characterized by his oratory, literary achievements, and perhaps strong, resolute leadership during some of the most turbulent times in history. As complex as he seemed on empire and colonialism, The effort in fighting for democracy and indomitable spirit made him a paramount icon of British strength and resilience. He remains celebrated up to this day as one of Britain's greatest prime ministers whose impact continues to resonate as an expression of both courage and conviction.
If you're interested in history and want more deep dives like this, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us keep bringing you the stories behind the events that shaped our world. Plus, you'll be the first to know when new videos drop. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more fascinating history.